What's up guys, Josh Olfert back with another video, and today I'm going to tell you guys why I'm changing my mind on buying crypto. Time to think like an investor. So welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Josh. I run a wealth management firm and I'm obsessed with this idea of financial independence and investing. And if you're interested in those sorts of things as well, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because a little bird told me that hitting the subscribe button is actually a repellent to COVID. So if you do that, it's apparently the equivalent of a vaccine. That's what I've been told. I don't know for sure. But all that being said, guys, today we're talking about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, these types of things. And lately, it's been all the rage because Bitcoin is back, pretty much back to all-time highs, higher than it's ever been before. So some of you may know Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies as the preferred method of payment for drug cartels, kidnappers, and other large-scale fraudsters. But my story is a little bit different. I remember back in, it was probably around 2013, maybe even late 2013, the first time Bitcoin ever really started to blow up. It was going from, I think, about 150, like 250 US dollars, and it quickly ramped up to like $700. And that's when it really started to make headlines. And for me, it was just this interesting experience because 2013, I was just getting out of high school. If it was priced around $200, $300, somewhere around there, for me, that wasn't an amount of money that I was at that point in my life just okay tossing away. I wasn't just okay throwing it to the side. So I thought, everybody's getting in on crypto. Some people are getting fantastically wealthy doing this. As someone who's interested in finance and investing, I gotta figure out what's going on here. I gotta get to the bottom of this. So I started researching and thinking about how I might trade this thing or how I might make money doing it on my own. And I quickly realized that it wasn't as secure as I had hoped. There was a lot of security issues. You're not sure if you're going to just put your money in some Bitcoin wallet or some cryptocurrency and never get it back. You could find yourself in a situation where you took money out of great investments that you had been using, and now all of a sudden you put it into crypto and it's worth half of what you had. So there was a lot of uncertainty. And obviously, looking back, it's obvious that I should have done it. I should have put the money in, but I didn't, because in that moment it was way less certain. And who knew that it was going to go to 18, 19, 20,000 USD, which is crazy. And there are stories I've heard about this, even in my city, of wealth managers, people, financial advisors in a role like mine, and they have a client come to them and say, I'm 28, 35, 46 years old, and I really got a hold of this cryptocurrency thing early, and now I'm sitting on $3-4 million of crypto, and they would go to their advisors telling them this problem. These are things that I was overhearing. It was crazy, the pandemonium and all the buildup around how this was really happening. But I think today I want to talk about my experience, because back then I was very, what we would call, bearish on cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin. And it wasn't because I didn't see the value in the technology. It's not because I didn't like it for some reason. To be honest, I have these libertarian leaning tendencies, which means I really don't love government intervention in a lot of things. So for me, you'd think cryptocurrency would be this huge boon. Why wouldn't I be interested in something like that? But I saw that this beautiful technology was being used in some sort of speculative bubble. And I want to talk today about why I didn't buy crypto back then, but why I'm slowly starting to change my mind. But first, before we really understand why that is, we need to know what Bitcoin is and where it really came from. So there's tons of places you could go all over the internet that are going to teach you exactly how Bitcoin works and the hashing algorithms and the functions they use to encrypt the currency. That's not my forte. I understand it marginally, but it's not like I'm going to explain it better than anybody else. But unfortunately, although I don't love to get political, it's difficult to have a discussion about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies without really understanding the political basis on which it was built. And Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they are a political thing. They are, in my opinion, much more political than they are economic. Well, why is that? I think that when you think about North America, you think about the USA or Canada, the reason the citizens of these countries, what they really want is freedom. That was really the founding principles of these democracies, is independent agency. We're all individuals, and we want to have freedom over what we pursue and our choices and all the sort of things like that. Now, what that kind of requires is you need to have good institutions, things like contract law or private property. Let's say you and I are doing some sort of transaction. We're trying to, this isn't going to work. We're going to try to do some sort of business deal where I'm going to sell you something, I'm going to build you something, and you're going to pay me in advance. Well, what happens if one of us doesn't hold up the end of the deal? Well, what happens there is the person with the bigger gun or the bigger muscles tends to win the argument, unless you have contract laws and courts and things like that and institutions in your society that really cement the validity of these transactions, economically speaking. Now, where we start to run into problems in a society like that is when we have a ton of government censorship or intervention in places where maybe it shouldn't be. And I think this is the reason cryptocurrencies really take off. It's not because it's some new digital form of payment, it's because it sidesteps government censorship. Let's think of a few things that have happened over the past decade. One, I guess this was beyond a decade already, the 2008 financial crisis was a larger political and social shift than anybody is giving credit. Well, I mean, there's probably some people giving it adequate credit, but most people don't. Because what happened in 2008 is we had a lot of different investment banks and different banking institutions taking large risks in the private sector. And what happened is when all of those risks exploded, they did what we call socializing the losses. These banks were so big and so important to the global economy that when their risks blew up in their face and they were all about to fail, the government stepped in and said, okay, if we let these companies fail, it's going to have massive repercussions to the world economy. So we're going to print a bunch of money, we're going to make a bunch of money out of thin air, and we're going to give these banks that money, and that way they can get themselves out of these problems. Now, whether or not that was the right decision, what we see is that the government is manipulating currency. They're manipulating how much currency is in supply, right? This is the problem that something like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency solves. What it does is it provides a decentralized currency where the value isn't tied to some government, it isn't tied to some policymaker, it isn't tied to the Fed. It's inherent in the currency. And if we think about a case like Edward Snowden, which was this massive global catastrophe where someone who was working at the National Security Agency of the US fled to a different country, and he released all these documents and pertinent details saying that the US is actually spying on its citizens at the government level. So all of these sorts of things start to break down the social trust that we have in our institutions. Not as many people trust the Federal Reserve because they're printing a ton of money all the time. With this recent pandemic, they've printed trillions of dollars. When we have someone like Edward Snowden come out and say, well, the government's actually monitoring all of your transactions, they're actually monitoring, creepy things like your webcam, whatever it might be, we start to lose that trust. And here is where cryptocurrency comes in. It says, hey, we know that we love these foundational principles of America and of democracy and freedom and having institutions that allow us to thrive and be free agents. But we want to build something that the government cannot interfere with, that they cannot watch over, that they cannot manipulate. And that is where Satoshi Nakamoto released a famous white paper that came out proposing Bitcoin. And I highly recommend you go read it. It gets a little technical in the back half. It's only 9 pages long. If you want to see the magnum opus of where Bitcoin came from, it's a 9-page PDF that's free online. So I recommend you read that. But what he proposed was an electronic currency that had no government intervention. Now, I think that technology is super cool. I think it's fantastic because what's at stake if the government gets way too much power? If we look at situations where governments get way too much power, we see authoritarianism. You see like the Soviet Union, you see Nazi Germany, you see North Korea, these places where they have an authoritarian or even a dictatorship that just destroys the freedom for the populace, for the country. So I love this idea of decentralizing a currency. Now, here was my problem, because I'm talking pretty optimistically, so why didn't I buy in? I saw this political and social movement become an object for speculators. And what that means is we had people who were super excited about this technology, bidding up the prices, bidding up the prices, bidding up the prices, until Bitcoin became worth thousands of dollars, and it was on a relative scale to past bubbles we've seen, like the internet tech stocks of the 2000s or tulip bulbs in 16th century Amsterdam. Bitcoin was entering a speculative bubble where it was just bound to pop. It almost seemed way too good to be true with the prices. And so I saw this beautiful technology being taken over by speculators, and I thought, yeah, the technology is great, but it's not something that you want to be a part of. Because here's my thoughts, and you guys know if you've seen any of my videos, I'm not a huge fan of speculation. This idea that we're going to guess on something that's going to go up in value and we're going to try to sell it and make money. What that shows to me is that you are pursuing more money instead of pursuing wealth and freedom, right? If you're pursuing wealth, what you're trying to do is buy into great companies or invest in real estate or build a business that produces value for the public and creates recurring revenue for you. Speculating is it's like the materialism of personal finance, because all it is it's feeding your ego. We know statistically speculating, buying this stock, picking that stock, trying to get rich quick in options or whatever it is, we know trading isn't a profitable activity for 99% of people. So it's your ego stepping in and saying, I think I can be an anomaly. I think I can pick the right thing. And it shows, what happens? What do you get for speculating? You end up getting your trade right. You make a bunch of money. Now you're in the exact same spot you were a couple months ago with just more money. And now you have to do this over and over again and always find a new trade. So that's my beef with speculation. And I thought Bitcoin was just an absolute center for speculators. Now, what happened? Well, the Bitcoin bubble kind of popped and we saw it go all the way back down to where now lately, we've seen Bitcoin ramp up again. And why is that? Well, in my perspective, it's this currency manipulation topic we discussed from 2008. When this pandemic came around, the government started printing trillions and trillions of dollars to get the economy going again. When the supply of something goes up and the demand stays the same or goes down, the price or the value has to fall. And that is the case to be made for why cryptocurrency is a great idea, is because no matter how much money your government prints, cryptocurrency won't be affected by some central government manipulating its currency to get it through its own problems. So in what situation do I think that crypto can play a role? Well, I dispense with the whole let's get rich quick by trading it idea. I don't think that's the right use. I think that the right use for crypto is a long-term asset allocation decision. And if you don't know what asset allocation is, it just means the construction of your portfolio of productive investments, your collection or your basket of investments you hold in your life. I don't think cryptocurrency should be a trade that you make money with quickly. I think it might be something you want to incorporate into the basket in a very particular scenario. Now, a lot of people think of Bitcoin as maybe like the doomsday currency. Like if we have some global apocalypse, you'll want to own Bitcoin, because if you own Bitcoin, it's not tied to the dollar. You can always transact with people. But my thought here has always been, if there's a zombie apocalypse or like a meteor that hits the earth, or for whatever reason, like everybody is in apocalypse mode, the internet's going to go down. Like you're not going to have your Bitcoin readily available unless you have like the coin version. So the whole idea that the prepper argument for why you should own crypto, it's not convincing to me. If you think the world's going to end, you should be stocking up on ammunition, firearms, and cigarettes, because those will have real value. Bitcoin, not so much. But what's a more likely outcome in the world isn't that we have a global apocalypse, but maybe more of like a local apocalypse. We've had, I would consider Weimar Germany, early 20th century Germany, kind of like a local apocalypse where they had rampant hyperinflation. If you had Bitcoin in that scenario, you could have hopped over to a different country and you could have started spending there. And more recently, we have countries like Venezuela or Zimbabwe where you see this massive rampant hyperinflation where prices are increasing for the citizens of a country every single week. It's like, imagine making money on your paycheck and then all the things you need to buy, like your groceries and your rent, they've all gone up 10% since your last paycheck. That's what hyperinflation is, and that's one of the big benefits crypto attempts to solve, is it eliminates this ability for hyperinflation. So in summary, the idea there is that if there is some sort of local catastrophe or regime change within your country, having access to Bitcoin allows you to flee. We're talking about 3 sigma, 4 sigma, 3 sigma, it's way more than that. Massive standard deviation events, things that don't happen in the course of regular people's lifetimes. So something to think about is, if I want to own crypto, am I doing it for a speculative reason? And if the answer is yes, I'm just trying to make some money quick, I think you're in it for the wrong reasons. I also think you're in it for the wrong reasons if you think cryptocurrency is going to replace our current fiat money system. it might become a much more compelling alternative, but I think these two things are going to run in line for the near future. They're going to run in unison with each other. It's not like one is going to overtake the other. So where I do think crypto is a play, and where I'm starting to think about it for my portfolio, is where is there some social issues that are beginning to stir. And I don't want to be some fear-mongering apocalypse guy, but I'm trying to prevent the risk of a local apocalypse, an ability for myself to, let's say, in some crazy circumstance, have a certain amount of wealth that if I need to flee a country, or if I need to evade government censorship because I feel like it's becoming a little too invasive, you have a currency that you can interact with and that you can use for an absolute worst case scenario. That's what I see crypto as. It's the worst case scenario piece of your portfolio for your asset allocation, as opposed to some trade or as opposed to something that you're gonna think is taking over paper money. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening to my rant on cryptocurrencies. That's what I think. That's where my head's at, and that's why I'm starting to buy on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, through Coinbase. Actually, I'm doing Litecoin because it's really cheap, Ethereum because I'm a huge believer in Vitalik. I think he's a brilliant young guy, and Bitcoin Cash because it's the cheapest possible thing. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys learned anything from this whatsoever, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications for more videos just like this one every single week. Until next time.